Amateur Radio News and Notes for Friday, August 21st, 2026. I'm Ed Kavik, November 2, Echo Charlie. In the log this week, we have a DXpedition spotlight for RI1FJL in Franz, Josef land. Also, the Huntsville Hamfest and ARRL National Convention are this weekend. We'll talk about some MVARC Nets on the air, see what's happening with DX, get a solar activity update, talk about some upcoming contests, and take a look at interesting online radio content. As always, the links to all the reference content can be found in the show notes and our Substack at mvarc.substack.com. The Russian DXpedition team, RUDXT, has been en route to the northernmost DXCC entity in the world, Franz, Josef land. The team reported at 0740 UTC that they were within 30 miles of the island in foggy conditions, traveling at 5 knots. Franz Josef land is a Russian archipelago in the Arctic Circle that is only inhabited by military personnel and has no permanent population. At the time of publication, it was listed as the 44th most wanted DXCC entity on Club Log. The team consists of 6 operators who plan to operate at least 5 power stations 24 hours a day for 15 days. They say they want to work as many locations as possible and are focusing on, quote, little pistols, close quote. While on their journey, they've also been operating Maritime Mobile. The team has been posting updates to dxworld.net, and their website can be found at rudxt.org/RI1FJL. This will be a good opportunity to get a rare one in the log. Good luck. The Huntsville Hamfest will be happening this weekend on August 22nd to 23rd at the Von Braun Center in Huntsville, Alabama. In addition to the Hamfest, they will also be hosting this year's ARRL National Convention. The Hamfest is one of the most popular hamfests in the United States and features several tracks of forums and presentations, in addition to hosting a flea market and vendors. The ARRL National Convention is offering 3 training tracks this year: a mini contest university, emergency communications academy, and Salty Walt's portable antenna workshop. Information about the Huntsville Hamfest can be found at hamfest.org, and for the ARRL National Convention at arrl.org/ARRL-Expo. And now let's take a look at some MVARC Nets on the air. We have our 2-meter FM net on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. on the repeater, and that is immediately followed by the 2-meter digital net on Yaesu System Fusion C4 FM on the same frequency. Then on the weekends, we've got the MVARC slow-speed CW Roundtable on Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 a.m. on 3.565 megahertz CW. And that's followed by the MVARC Cherry Tree Net on Saturday and Sunday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time at 3.920 megahertz lower sideband, where we always have a great conversation, and you're always welcome to join us. Now let's take a look at what is happening with DX. There will be a lot of DX on the air this week. Stations on the air include St. Lucia, Market Reef, Franz Josef land, Rodrigues Island, Canary Islands, Iceland, Mauritius, Lesotho, St. Kitts and Nevis, Reunion, and Namibia. A calendar of DXpeditions can be found at NG3K's announced DX operations list at ng3k.com. And now it's time for a solar activity update. As we go to press, the Solar Flux Index, or SFI, was 125, and the estimated sunspot number was 72, with 4 numbered sunspot regions visible from Earth. Over the last week, the SFI has increased. Solar activity has been at high levels in the last 24 hours. The geomagnetic field has been at quiet to unsettled levels in the last 24 hours, and the KP index reached 3 yesterday. The solar wind peaked at 598 kilometers a second. Solar activity is predicted to be at low levels with a chance of M-class flares and a slight chance for X-class flares today through Sunday. The geomagnetic field is forecast to be at quiet to active levels today and Saturday, and at quiet to unsettled levels on Sunday. The chance of solar radiation storms at the S1 or greater level is at 5% today through Sunday. R1 to R2 radio blackouts are possible, with a predicted probability of 40% today through Sunday. R3 or greater blackouts are possible, with a chance of 10% predicted today through Sunday. It remains a fantastic time for amateurs to get on the air and work the world. Good sources of real-time solar information include spaceweatherlive.com and solarham.com. A good overview of conditions can be found at dx.qsl.net/propagation. To see delayer absorption data and associated radio blackouts, visit the NOAA DRAP page. And to see real-time maximum usable frequency, or MUF, and critical frequency, or FOF2 information from radio sonde data, visit prop.kc2g.com. Now let's take a look at some upcoming contests. This weekend brings the Turkey HF contest, the YODX HF contest, the ARSI VU DX contest, the Hawaii QSO Party, the Ohio QSO Party, the CVA DX contest on single sideband, and the SARL HF CW contest. As always, the K1 USN SSTs, the MSTs, and the CWTs will also be on the air. The full contest calendar with events and exchanges can be found at contestcalendar.com. And now let's wrap things up with some interesting online radio content. As always, the links to all of the content we're about to discuss are in the show notes and also at our Substack at mvarc.substack.com. Josh KI6NAZ looks into FCC action taken on illegally linked GMRS repeaters. Walt K4OGO works Australian DX with a cheap vertical on the beach. Manuel DL2MAN shows the process for flashing the NG or next generation firmware for the true SDX rigs. Kevin KB9RLW shows how to modify a Chromebook as a cheap Linux box for amateur radio. Mike K&MRD shows his loadout for the Huntsville Hamfest. Dr. Tamitha Scove, WX6SWW, talks about recent solar storms. And Thomas, K4SWL, gives his guide to getting started with the Elecraft KX2. Well, that is it for this week. I've been Ed, November 2, Echo Charlie. Thanks, as always, for joining us. We hope you have a great week ahead. Best 73, and we look forward to seeing you next week.